And today is no exception. We've got a press release hot off the digital press, and it's got some pretty significant implications.
Right, so this isn't just another token launch or a minor upgrade. This is something that could really shake things up.
Exactly. And to fully grasp the weight of this news, we need to look beyond the headlines and really unpack what's going on.
So think of this as a deep dive into not just the specific announcement, but into the forces that are shaping the future of decentralized finance.
Because when we talk about DeFi, we're not just talking about technology, we're talking about a fundamental shift in how we think about finance.
And this press release gives us a glimpse into how that shift is playing out in real time, with real projects, real challenges, and real potential solutions.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. The press release we're looking at today centers around the listing of a new cryptocurrency on a major exchange.
Right, and that cryptocurrency is called APTM, which stands for Apertum, and the exchange is none other than LBank, one of the biggest players in the game.
And this is where things start to get interesting because when a platform like LBank decides to list a new token, it's not a decision they make lightly.
Yeah, they've got a reputation to uphold millions of users who trust them to make sound choices and a responsibility to maintain the integrity of the overall market.
So for them to give APTM the green light, it means they see something special, something that aligns with their vision of the future of crypto.
Right, so let's start by giving our listeners the basic facts. When did this listing actually happen, and where can they go to see it for themselves?
Okay, the press release tells us that APTM went live on LBank Exchange on March 30th, just a few days ago, and the trading pair is APTM USDT.
And if you want to jump in and see how the market's reacting to this listing, the link is lbank.com/tradeaptmollydt. We'll put that in the show notes for you too.
Now let's zoom out a bit and put LBank into perspective. I mean, we threw out the major exchange label, but just how big are we talking?
Well, LBank isn't just big, they're a global powerhouse. They have over 15 million users spread across 210 regions worldwide. So we're talking about a seriously large and active user base.
Exactly. And that's not just some recent hype. They've been building this reputation since 2015, consistently ranking among the top platforms for both spot and derivatives trading.
So in a platform of that caliber with that kind of track record decides to bring a new crypto into the fold, it sends a pretty clear signal to the market.
It's like a stamp of approval, a recognition that this project has the potential to make a real impact, and that's what makes this ATTM listing so intriguing.
So we know where APTM is being traded,
Hmm.
but the big question is, what is APTM? What is it trying to achieve in the crypto space?
That's the heart of the matter, and the press release makes it clear that Aperam is on a mission to address some of the most fundamental challenges holding crypto back from true mainstream adoption.
You know, the things that keep coming up again and again, security, scalability, transparency, these aren't just buzzwords. They're real obstacles that need to be overcome.
Absolutely, and the press release lays it out really well. If people don't feel confident that their assets are secure, they're not going to invest.
And if the network can't handle the volume of transactions as more people join, it just becomes unusable. So scalability is crucial.
And then there's transparency. Without it, trust erodes, and the whole idea of a decentralized system starts to fall apart.
So Apertum is stepping up, saying, we're building something that addresses these issues head on. They're positioning themselves as a potential solution.
Right, they're calling themselves a decentralized cryptocurrency built on cutting-edge technology, with the aim of creating an efficient, scalable, and secure platform for digital finance.
Okay, cutting edge technology always sounds good in a press release, but what does that actually mean in the context of Apertum?
Well, this is where things get pretty cool. The press release dives into the specifics of their technology, and the first thing that jumps out is that Apertum is built as a subnet on the Avalanche blockchain.
Ah, Avalanche. Now we're talking. This is where it starts to get really exciting for those of us who follow the tech side of things.
Yeah. Exactly. Avalanche is known for its speed, its security, and its ability to handle a huge number of transactions all at the same time.
So for Apertum to build as a subnet on Avalanche, it's like they're getting a direct connection to this high-performance network.
Yeah, think of it like this Avalanche is like a superhighway, and Apertum is building its own dedicated lane on that highway, so they get all the benefits of the underlying infrastructure without having to build it from scratch.
That's a great analogy. So they're not reinventing the wheel. They're building a high-performance car and putting it on a road that's already been optimized for speed and efficiency.
Right, and that allows them to focus their energy on developing the unique features that set Apertum apart from the crowd.
And the press release does highlight some of these innovative features.
Mm.
One that caught my eye was deflationary tokenomics.
Yeah, that's a big one, and it has the potential to really impact the value of APTM over time. Basically, it means the total supply of APPM will decrease as time goes on.
How does that work? Is it like some kind of automatic buyback and burn program?
It's similar, but even more interesting. They've built it into the core transaction mechanism of Apertum. So every time a transaction happens, a small portion of the fees is permanently removed from circulation.
So it's like a tiny bit of APTM is being destroyed with each transaction forever gone, kind of like a self-regulating system that constantly shrinks the supply.
Exactly. And that's where the deflationary aspect comes in. If the demand for APTM stays the same or even increases while the supply keeps shrinking, it could put upward pressure on the price.
That makes sense. It incentivizes long-term holding because as the supply dwindles, those who hold onto their APTM could see their value go up.
Right. The press release actually points to this as a key element of their long-term growth strategy. They're not just looking for a quick pump and dump, they're thinking about sustainable value creation.
Okay, that's a pretty fascinating approach to tokenomics. The other big feature they highlight is decentralized governance. And this is a term we hear a lot in the crypto world.
Yeah, it's become a bit of a buzzword, but in the case of Apertum, it has some really interesting implications. Basically, it means that holders of APTM tokens have a say in how the project evolves.
So it's not just a small team of developers calling all the shots. It's the community itself that has the power to make decisions.
Right. The press release mentions that APTM holders can vote on things like changes to the underlying technology, how resources are allocated within the ecosystem, and even how disputes are resolved.
So it's a more democratic approach to running a cryptocurrency project, more transparent, more accountable, and more in line with the ethos of decentralization.
Exactly. And that kind of community involvement can be incredibly powerful. It fosters a sense of ownership among token holders, and it can lead to more innovative and sustainable solutions.
Now let's go back to those core challenges we talked about, security and scalability.
Huh.
How does Apertum actually tackle those issues?
Well, on the security front, the press release emphasizes their use of cutting-edge cryptographic techniques to protect transactions and user data.
Okay, that sounds impressive, but we've heard that before. Can
Yeah.
you give us a little more detail on what that might actually entail?
Unfortunately, the press release doesn't dive into the specifics, but we can assume they're using the latest and greatest methods to ensure that transactions are authentic and that sensitive information is kept safe from prying eyes.
Right, so they're not just relying on outdated methods, they're actively innovating to stay ahead of potential threats.
Exactly. And when it comes to scalability, their approach is equally interesting. They're using a decentralized consensus mechanism based on a proof of stake or POS model.
Now, POS is becoming increasingly popular in the crypto world. Can you explain why that is and how it benefits Eperdemo?
Sure. So in the old days of Bitcoin and some other early cryptos, the way transactions were verified was through a process called proof of work or POW, which involved miners competing to solve complex mathematical problems.
And that required a huge amount of energy and computing power, which wasn't very efficient or environmentally friendly.
Exactly. And it also limited how many transactions could be processed per second, which created bottlenecks and slowed things down.
So POS comes in and says, hey, we can do this in a more efficient way instead of having miners burn through energy. Let's have people who already hold the token stake their tokens to validate transactions. So the more tokens you hold, the more influence you have in verifying transactions and the more rewards you can earn.
Right. And because it doesn't rely on that energy-intensive mining process, POS is much faster, more scalable, and more sustainable.
And the press release highlights that this POS model also makes the network more resistant to attacks because it would take a huge amount of capital to control enough tokens to disrupt the system.
So by combining the speed and security of the Avalanche network with these advanced cryptographic methods and the POS consensus mechanism, they've created a multi-layered approach to addressing those core challenges.
Okay, so they're taking a comprehensive approach to building a solid foundation for their platform. Now, the press release also mentions the Apertum Foundation. What role does that play in the ecosystem?
The foundation is basically the steward of the project. They oversee the overall governance of the platform, they manage protocol upgrades, and they make sure the technology stays current and efficient.
So they're kind of like the guardians of the Apertum vision, making sure the project stays on track and continues to evolve in a positive direction.
Right. And a key part of their role is facilitating the decentralized governance we talked about earlier. They make sure that the decisions made by the APTM holders through voting are actually implemented.
So they're not just a top-down organization. They're there to empower the community and make sure their voices are heard.
Exactly. And the press release specifically mentions that the foundation is responsible for funding marketing, advertising, and research efforts.
And to do that, they have a pre-allocated pool of APTM tokens, right?
Yes, the press release states that 100 million APTM tokens were pre-minted and given to the foundation for these operational purposes, and that represents about 4.76% of the total token supply.
So it's a fairly common practice in crypto projects to have a portion of the tokens set aside for development and marketing to ensure the project has the resources it needs to grow.
Absolutely, and it's important to note that this pre-allocation was transparently disclosed in their documentation, so it's not like they're hiding anything.
Okay, so we've talked about the technology, the governance, the foundation. Let's dive into the numbers. What does the overall tokenomics structure of APTM look like?
So the total supply of APTM is capped at 2.1 billion tokens. No more will ever be created.
And of that, 2 billion are mined over time through a process that includes halvings, which means the rate at which new tokens are created gradually decreases.
Right. It's a similar concept to Bitcoin's halving mechanism designed to control inflation and create scarcity over time.
And the remaining 100 million were those pre-minted tokens allocated to the foundation for their operational needs.
Correct. And the press release also gives us a glimpse into current adoption. It says that more than 25,000 wallet addresses hold APTM, which is a pretty decent number for a relatively new project.
That's a good sign. It suggests there's already a growing community of people who believe in the potential of Apertum.
And it'll be interesting to see how that number evolves as the project gains more visibility and more people learn about what they're trying to achieve.
So finally, let's talk about the big picture. What is Apertum's ultimate vision for their role in the digital finance landscape?
The press release sums it up perfectly. They aim to revolutionize digital finance. And they're doing that by focusing on those key pillars we discussed: security, scalability, transparency, and inclusivity.
They're not just trying to create another meme coin or a quick cash grab. They're building something that they believe can fundamentally change how we interact with money.
Exactly. And their choice to build on Avalanche, their commitment to deflationary tokenomics, and their emphasis on decentralized governance all point to a long-term vision.
They're betting that by addressing the core challenges that have held crypto back, they can unlock a new era of financial freedom and empowerment.
And whether they succeed or not remains to be seen, but the fact that a major exchange like LBank is backing them is a pretty strong indicator that they're on the right track.
So to wrap up this deep dive, we've seen that the listing of APTM on LBank Exchange is more than just a news item. It's a sign of the times.
It represents the growing maturity of the crypto market and the emergence of projects that are focused on tackling the real-world challenges that will determine the future of decentralized finance.
And for you, our listeners, this deep dive has hopefully given you a solid understanding of what Apertum is all about and why this listing is so significant.
It's a story of innovation, of ambition, and of a community coming together to build something truly groundbreaking.
As you go out and explore the world of Apertum for yourself, we leave you with this question: in the ever-evolving landscape of decentralized finance, how do we strike the right balance between pushing the boundaries of technology and ensuring that the foundations of security and scalability are rock solid?
How do we ensure that as we innovate, we don't lose sight of the core values that underpin the whole idea of decentralized finance?
These are questions that Apertum and other projects like them are grappling with, and the answers will shape the future of how we interact with money and with each other in the digital age.
So stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the fascinating world of cryptocurrency, because the future is being built right now, and it's up to all of us to participate in shaping it.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another exploration of the most exciting developments in the crypto world. Until then, happy investing.
And stay informed.